Steve Bannon, as Trump once called him, and I laughed at it for about 5 minutes, Sloppy Steve. It's never going to get old. So he's been arrested for fraud and various other financial crimes. Here's a CNBC report about it.
Steve Bannon has been arrested and indicted by the Manhattan U.S. Attorney, federal prosecutors in Manhattan. For more on that, we'll get to our Eamon Javers. Hey, Eamon.
Yeah, Carl, this news just coming out from the Southern District of New York saying that Steve Bannon and 3 other men have been arrested and indicted charged in relation to their role in a nonprofit organization called We Build the Wall. It's a crowdfunding organization that the SDNY says has raised about $25 million for wall-related funding. What the indictment here is alleging is that Bannon and these others were skimming some of the proceeds from that fundraising for themselves, even though they had suggested publicly that this was a volunteer organization and they were not taking salaries. The indictment document here says that Bannon publicly stated, "We are a volunteer organization." Those representations, the government says, were false. They also say that Steve Bannon, through a nonprofit organization under his control, Nonprofit One, as it's referred to here in the document, received over $1 million from We Build the Wall, at least some of which, they say, Bannon used to cover hundreds of thousands of dollars in his own personal expenses. So, Carl, dramatic development here for a former high-ranking White House counselor. We'll see if the White House has any statement on this coming up this morning. Back over to you.
Wow. Carl, you can still donate. Your donations have a direct impact. Right now, you can go to the site. Maybe it's ill-advised.
Indeed, I'm looking over. Yeah, I'm looking over the DOJ release right now, guys. As alleged, they say, the defendants defrauded hundreds of thousands of donors, capitalizing on their interest in funding a border wall to raise millions of dollars under the false pretense that all of that money would be spent on construction.
Wow.
This is like the least surprising news of all time, because I remember when I covered the story about the GoFundMe for the border wall, I was like, wait, hold on. This is obviously illegal. You can't crowdfund to do something that you don't have the rights to do. Does Steve Bannon and the other guy, Brian Kolfage, and, there were a bunch of, high-profile Republicans who were associated with this. But, do they own the private land all along the southern border? No. Do they own the public land all along the southern border? No. So they don't have rights to the private land. They don't have rights to the public land, but they're going to do a GoFundMe to build a border wall. That you obviously don't have the rights to do that. The second you start building on public land or private land, the person who owns the private land can come up to you and say, I don't want you building on my property and you have to stop. Or the government could come up to you and say, I don't want you building on the public land, you have to stop. So I couldn't, for the life of me, I didn't understand. They raised so much money. And obviously it wasn't going to go to the wall. They raised $25 million or thereabouts. So, imagine, I know that there's a lot of smug Democrats who are, almost happy that these people got ripped off, giving their money to a border wall that wasn't going to be built. But no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Now, by the way, there's an interesting fact in the story that blew my mind. I couldn't believe this. Apparently, the only reason they really got caught was because they made a 100% promise where they said, no, you don't get it. 100% of these funds are going to the border wall. And apparently, whenever you have some charity thing, some nonprofit thing, and somebody makes a pledge of 100% is going to something, that immediately triggers the feds because they know that that's basically impossible to do 100%. And so even if you did 97%, that's technically illegal. That's technically against the law. So it's just the fact that they were so stupid that they didn't write hey, it's going to be whatever it was, 85% going to the wall. That really just triggered the federal investigation in the first place. And then once they started the federal investigation, they uncovered a lot. So Bannon got like $1 million, went to him personally. Brian Kolfage guy got like $350,000 or $400,000. There were others who got money. The Brian Kolfage guy bought a boat that he used at one of the Trump boat parades. It's just... And then, of course, Bannon has since come out and he's got a deep state plot, this and that. Is it really? So why don't you show me the wall? Oh, that's right. You can't because you didn't build it. I couldn't believe that anybody was gullible enough to think like you could just do a GoFundMe for the border wall. And by the way, in their text messages to each other, they're literally talking about the way to set it up where it's sketchy and illegal, but they might be able to get away with it. Like, they're clear in their communication, like, this is wrong and we probably will get caught, but if we do it this way, maybe we won't get caught. So they knew that they were, doing something that's wrong. And by the way, listen, Trump surrounds himself with guys like this all the time. And in terms of, Bannon's one of the people, funny enough, who strategically is like not the dumbest in the administration. Imagine what the dumb guys are like. And, guys like Roger Stone, like he surrounds himself with Roger Stone, Steve Bannon. These guys are like, petty criminals. I mean, this was so brazen, man. This is so brazen. This is like grifter to the max. And Washington, D.C. is full of assholes like this, by the way. So they were just it was a little too ambitious. It's a little too ambitious to do a GoFundMe for the border wall, raise millions, promise 100% of it is going to the border wall. And then who knows what happened in terms of like, I forget, but didn't they say something like, if we can't do that, it'll go to like charity or something? I don't know. Whatever. They got caught. I'm not surprised by it. Literally go back and watch the segment announcing the GoFundMe. And I'm going, this is clearly illegal in the segment. And apparently, funny enough, the feds who saw the GoFundMe story were like, well, this is obviously illegal. And idiots like Fox News was promoting it. You don't have like legal experts or attorneys behind the scenes who could be like, there's an X-nay on the thing to scare. Don't do that, bro. Don't do that. You want to get caught up in a legal web because these guys are going down skis. So anyway, I can't believe he went with like deep state plot to come out and say, no, this is all fake. I can't. Like, dog, you're caught, man. You're caught. I don't know. I mean, this is the equivalent of like your wife walking in on you mid-sex act with somebody. Like, done. You're caught. It's over. You can't say, deep state made this happen. Come on. What are we doing? You just grow up a little bit, man. Grow up. I mean, it's just pathetic.